Elyon is where we're going this morning, a name we don't hear very often, but one's very powerful and strong. Our opening passage this morning to kind of get us into the concepts in Genesis 14, verses 19 and 20. And I want you to say these words with me. You ready? He blessed him and said, Abram is blessed by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth. And I give praise to God Most High, who has handed over your enemies to you. Now, God Most High, we see that in there twice. That's El Elyon. If you want to get back to the Hebrew, God Most High. That's who we're talking about this morning. Not a strong and powerful God, but the pinnacle, the highest, the peak of all gods. He is the one. We're going to kind of look and see what this looks like this morning. We talked about Elohim last week, and we saw it really with reference to El. Elohim is a version of El. And again, some of you may have heard some of our Muslim friends talking about Allah, and it's kind of the same derivative. We're talking about God. It's a general form. El is a general concept of God. And historically, El was used to reference many of the gods around Israel at the time when the Bible was written. El is a general word for God. And so if you worshiped Allah, you worship Buddha, whatever way you might worship around, you might say El, because that's the typical simplified concept of God. Many people around would have used it. Look at Exodus 34. It says, you are never to bow down to another god, El. This is Moses writing through what God is imparting to him, because Yahweh, being jealous by nature, is a jealous God. So even Moses, through the imparting of words through the Lord, is saying that you cannot worship anymore. You don't bow down to any other Els anywhere else. That's one of the few times you see in the Old Testament El specifically referenced. So it can deal with a specific God, or we can see that El can be also dealing with deity in general, kind of an overall concept of what God is. Deuteronomy 3. Lord God, you've begun to show your greatness and the power to your servant. For what God, El, is there in heaven or on earth who can perform deeds and mighty acts like yours? So we see the concept. El is it's not just used for our God. It's a general concept of the word God that would have been used during the Old Testament period. And so the God of Israel, though, stands apart from these other Els of other nations. He's different. He reveals himself in human history by the way that he acts with his people. Even this morning, if you were in Sunday school, we talked through the second chapter of Judges, first chapter of Judges, dealing with they worship the other gods' Els. They worship the other Asherah poles and things like that. They went to worshiping other gods, but our God is unique. Only in a few occurrences in the entire Old Testament is our God, Yahweh God, referred to as El. He's not. We talked about it last week. He is referred to as Elohim. You see where is it spelled? We'll make sure I get it. Elohim is how we would do it in the English, and El starts at El. But that him, that I am at the end of it, shows and indicates that it's multiple. It would like be adding an S to the end of our words. So he is strong, he is powerful, and he is more than one. Now again, if you missed last week, we understand the Trinity is the concept that they're referring to, even back to the Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God, Elohim. This one God is multiple. The Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. That's who we worship. One God in three persons. So please do not think we worship three gods, because we do not. Our Muslim friends will think that Christians worship three gods. We do not. It is one God in three persons acting in different roles at the same time, ensuring that we can do all the things that God needs us, and he can be in all the places and take care of the way that he needs to take care of his people. It's difficult to understand, but it's very simple. One God, three persons. But you also see God's also referred to as Yahweh. Now, we're going to get into that. That's his proper name down the road. And that's when you're wanting to refer to him specifically and talk about this one God, not all of the Els, but Yahweh, El, Yahweh God. This morning we're dealing with that multiple term, El, Elyon. It's kind of adding an adjective to the front of God's name. Let's see if we can see some of his multifaceted character. Again, the more we look at God, we kind of see him like a diamond. If you've ever looked at a diamond, when I was buying that one for my wife 20 plus years ago, I got to look underneath the microscope and turn it around and say, okay, is this good? Is this worth going into a ring or not? All that kind of stuff. And as you turn it under the light, you get to see all the beautiful facets, the cuts, and the different colors that come through that. And that's what God's names bless us with. As we see God, as we work with Him, as we understand the history of how He's worked with His people, we can see Him in this role. We can see Him in this role. Our God is good. And if I don't get you to understand anything else, I need you to take God out of the box you've put Him in. And I'm just as bad at that. I see Him. I'm great with El. I'm great with Elohim. I'm good there. Strong, powerful, mighty God. That's my God. Got it. I have trouble with God maybe being a mighty healer or my sustainer, my foundation. I have trouble with some of those because I'm so good at seeing Him as strong and powerful and mighty. And so I'm growing in this too. Maybe we can all grow together. We're in the book of Genesis, so open up there. Right there, that first book of the Bible, written by Moses. Most people don't ever doubt it. Now understand that the book of Genesis covers 2,000 years, and Moses did not live over 2,000 years. So we're seeing that at this point, he is telling the history to his people of what happened before. He wants to make sure that the history that's gone beyond and behind him is not going to be forgotten. God did these things in the past. God can still do these things for us today. Written somewhere around 1400 BC. A powerful, powerful book, just as strong. And we see in the book of Genesis about God calling a nation to Himself. A nation that will bless all other nations. We are blessed by God and His people. And this morning we're going to be in Genesis 13. I'm going to read a few verses, a little more than normal. But we'll see if we can get there this morning. Please stand with me. Genesis 13, verses 2 through 9. Kind of got to get you into this story. It says this. Abram was very rich in livestock, silver, and gold. He went by stages from the Negev to Bethel, to the place between Bethel and Ai, where his tent had formerly been, to the site where he had built the altar. And Abraham called on the name of Yahweh there, one of name God's specific, his personal name. Now Lot, who was traveling with Abram, also had flocks and herds and tents, but the land was unable to support them as long as they stayed together, for they had so many possessions they couldn't stay together. And there was quarreling between the herdsmen and Abram's livestock, and the herdsmen and Lot's livestock at the time the Canaanites and the Perizzites were living in the land. Then Abram said to Lot, "Please, let's not have quarreling between you and me, or between your herdsmen and my herdsmen, since we're relatives. Isn't the whole land before you? Separate from me. If you go to the left, I'll go to the right, and if you go to the right, I'll go to the left." That'll get us far enough where we need to go this morning. Let's stop. Dear Lord, you are good, and I thank you for your story, Lord. I thank you for Moses writing it down. I thank you for his obedience. Lord, I thank you that we could see so many lessons in those patriarchs, the goods, the bads, and the uglies, Lord. Let us this morning not make the same mistakes. Let us recognize how great a God we serve. Let us understand how blessed we are to have your full knowledge and the full understanding of your word this morning. We've got all the books together. Lord, they had such little back then, Lord, but you did so many powerful things to their lives. Forgive us for not seeing you as great and mighty this morning. We say this in your name. Amen. Please be seated. You need to I feel distracted, and I don't know why. So kind of help me focus in this morning. I'm praying God will keep me on track. I don't know why I'm distracted. In order to understand Elyon, we must understand the historical context. So this morning, I've got to tell you a story. I've got to get you through a story. Now, understand I'm not your biggest preacher. That's not how I work. I'm more of a teacher all day long. But sometimes I can get on to preaching. Sometimes I've got to tell a story to get where we need to go. And I want to make sure that we understand this story because this story is 2 or 3 chapters, and I can't preach 2 or 3 chapters. But maybe I can let you, just by telling the story, understand who Elyon is. It's a powerful story. A lot of interesting things happen. But when we look at it, the name Elyon is first used in Genesis 14. This is the first time we see this combination of words. Again, and it's after Lot had determined to separate his people and his livestock from Abraham. Abram and Lot have many, many people together. They've got many, many animals, and all these animals need food. It would be like me trying to stick 10 cows out on that 10 acres. They would die in about a week because there's nothing out there to eat. Now, if they ate prairie dogs, we're probably in good shape. They may grow and prosper over time. But if they don't eat prairie dogs, let's say they eat the grass that's on the ground, they're not going to make it. And so that's kind of the situation we've got him here. Abraham allows Lot to choose which way he wants to go. They're up on this large area, and Abram is looking into the beautiful promised land. As far as he can see off to the north, as far as he can see off to the south, it's all theirs. Anything he wants. God has promised that's his. You can have it which way you want to go. You can go whichever way you want. And so you see Lot. He's a nephew. He's younger. Abram is older and wiser and got a lot of time behind him to help make decisions with reference to God. So you can see at this point, Abram says, just choose your direction. Lot looks off maybe to one direction. He sees that 10 acres out there is essentially what he sees. Desert. He sees rocks. He sees craggy areas. He sees a place that's going to be very difficult to live. Then he looks off to the other area and he sees rivers. He sees valleys. He sees green. He sees fruit trees. He sees nothing but hope and a future. Now, which way do you think Lot went? Now, again, when I've got those kind of choices, usually I'll let someone else choose. I'm going to always let someone else make the choice. That way I'm not going to put myself out ahead of anyone else. Where Lot just says, let me think, let's just go this way. Let's go to the better side. That's where Lot ends up going. He chose the easy route. The easy route. Not understanding how sin can enter into a life through the easy route. How many of us have done that? You know, I've met through my life and my experiences. Again, I fought the ministry forever and ever. I just fought it. But when I got into it, I've seen so many sweet, sweet people make poor decisions and their lives be crashed on the rocks. They take the one that looks like the wealth and the fame and the money, and it ends up destroying their families. It ends up destroying their lives. They say, oh, this is all good. God wouldn't give me this thing unless it was Him telling me to do this thing. No, it doesn't work that way. And again, I think later on I'm going to tell you a little story, quick one, about when I've had that opportunity to go one way or the other. I mean, I've seen so many people. We make these choices that are dictated by the world's standards of value and success. And God wants us to look to Him. Lot could have gone either way. Lot took the easy route. Now, please understand, if God gives you the opportunity to choose, and He often will, it doesn't mean it's going to be the easy route. Sometimes He's going to give you beautiful things to look at, and He's expecting you and hoping you'll go the other way. But God is gracious. He is good to His people, and He gives you the opportunity to choose. Again, we make these choices. So at this point, Lot chose the lush route. And Abram honored his word. He went off into the desert, essentially. That's a good man. Now let's see if we can start. That's enough to kind of get us into our story. And let's see if we can understand who Elyon is by this crazy story of a couple guys going in different directions. Abram rescues Lot. Well, I've already told you what's about to happen. I've kind of foreshadowed where we're about to go. But let me read a couple verses here. Verses 10 and 11. Lot looked out, and again, I've already told you about this, and saw that the entire Jordan Valley, as far as Zoar, was well-watered everywhere like the Lord's garden and the land of Egypt. This was before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. We've already got a little bit of history there. So Lot chose the entire Jordan Valley for himself, and Lot journeyed eastward and separated from each other. This is what we see happening. Let's get back to our story of Elyon. Lot looked out. He saw the better side. He went that way. He said it looked like the Lord's garden. Who wouldn't take that? So Lot took the good ground. Again, how does this mean Lot needs saving? You know, I haven't gotten you the full story, but Lot does at some point in the future, very short time, going to need to be saved. The thing we don't know yet, is, which I've already alluded to, is that Sodom and Gomorrah are in this beautiful area of lush green grass and land. The two worst cities. Even if you've never been in church before, you've heard of Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom has never been referred to as anything other than an evil place, no matter where you're from. Everyone looks at this way. Lot is essentially moving to Sodom, the worst city on the planet. It looks beautiful. But doesn't sin always look good? Doesn't it always look good? You know, if sin really looked like it really does, destructive and painful and dark and bloody and nasty, no one would ever go that way. It just doesn't. It may look like a picture on a computer screen. It may look like a new friend you've just made at work. And it goes from there. You never know what sin truly looks like until you're so far down into it, and that's the trick the enemy has. Lot's moving to Sodom, and Sodom looks beautiful. It's a beautiful place. Why would they not put that city there? Again, you look at it, the thing we don't know, again, that these two great cities are here. Cindy and I have had discussion for a long time, and we've said plenty of times that we believe the most beautiful cities with the best climates are always going to be the ones where you have the most trouble, most vagrancy, most people just sleeping out on the streets. Go to Hawaii. Go to Oahu and spend time there. All these most beautiful parks are filled up with little tent villages. You know, you don't have to work there. You can go out, fish in the morning, and sleep in your tent in the afternoon, whatever it is. You see that kind of a problem. Oahu's beautiful. I love it. I look forward to going back again. But when it comes down to it, you can't live like that in Alaska. You got to fight. You try to sleep in a tent in Alaska in the middle of winter, you got about 15 minutes of that, and then you're cold and dead. That's the kind of thing you see. Whereas you look at New Mexico, it's the same kind of thing. We're more temperate. We've got the hots aren't as hot, the colds aren't as cold. You can make it a cold night and still be able to deal with it. This is the kind of thing we see. We see this beautiful city out there off on the horizon. I believe God gives us opportunities. Lot had the opportunity to take the rough area, the craggy area, the dirty, dark area that's going to require work. Or he went the way that's going to be easy. As I told you, when I sacrificed to ministry one night on a Sunday night, I just went down. I was making big money, giving every single penny I could to the church. Didn't know what I was supposed to do. And then I was working 100 hours a week and still playing for everything the church needed, getting off work late and coming in Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights and funerals and weddings, doing all I could. I just sacrificing all my time. And so I didn't know what else I could do. I'd given everything I could give, and I was worn out giving it all. And one night I come front center and talk to the pastor. What else do you do when you don't know what to do? You talk to the pastor. Talk to him, and he said, well, maybe you're supposed to sacrifice to the ministry. Maybe. I said, okay, whatever it is, I'm sick of this fight. I'll give it whatever God wants me to do. And that's essentially what I said that night. I'll do whatever you want me to do, God. I don't know what you want me to do, but I'll do it. The very next morning, it's a funny story. The very next morning, the boss comes to me and says, I can give you a lot more money, but I'm going to need a lot more of your time. I was already making lots of money. The very next morning, I can increase your salary by probably 25%, but it's going to require more time. You're going to be out of pocket. You're going to be out and across, spending more time away from your family, but it's going to be the best payday you ever saw. I could have gone two ways. I could have gone the way of the easy money. I was already making plenty I didn't know what to do with. Or I could have said, I don't know what to do, and I'll do this thing that God says to do. The end of the week, and I don't quit. I always have a parachute around me and a trampoline underneath me. I quit that job in a week. That's the kind of thing. I think God baited me. Let's be honest. I think God baited me to see which way I'm going to go. Do you really want to follow me? Are you serious? Okay, let's throw this thing out and see how clear you are. If you're going to follow me, I'm going to throw you the best opportunity you've ever seen in your life. How many of you have followed that opportunity? Now, again, I've had plenty of mistakes along the way. I'm glad I didn't goof that one up. God provided everything. We sold off everything. We had enough money to get into seminary until that first check came. All the stocks, all the bonds, all the brand new car, all of it sold off. And we were down to our last $10 before my check came in at seminary when I was working, my first check after working. They always keep 2 weeks or something in arrears. We made it, and we came out with a perfect credit score and paid every bill, not knowing how. I could have taken that route, and I probably would have still been there, but God allowed me to be here. Lot was given that same type of offer. Which way are you going to go? This looks easy. Looks good. Why would you take this? Which one do you want to go? Now, I believe if Abram would have been given the choice, he would have made the right choice either way. Either way, he would have been fine. You look at Lot, for the most part, we can see Lot just attached himself to Abram, and Abram was kind of felt responsible. He took him in. I believe Lot's faith was attached to Abram's. So the reason he did well is because Abram was there. He was stable. He plodded along and did a good job. And I think if Lot would have gone that way, he would never have been affected. I can't guarantee. But look at this. Let's continue on in our story. 13. Now the men of Sodom were evil. They sinned greatly against the Lord. Let's get back to our story a little bit. Not only were the people of Sodom wicked, which now Lot lives there, it was a politically unstable area at best. Little city-states were all over the place, and one of them was always attacking the other. Small cities were ruled by bigger cities. These bigger cities would conquer more cities, then a larger city would take them over. Once in a while, you'd see the little cities that were conquered would stand up for themselves, and they would conquer and take over some other city because they rallied their troops. Again, from time to time, you saw these kind of things. It was always war going on. This is the area that Lot chose. It really is kind of a foreshadowing of his life and who he's going to be. Because no one wanted to go to the desert, no one fought over it. Abram just was happy living a simple, peaceful life. You know, sometimes the greatest blessing we can receive in life is just peace. You know? It's not that new television set or that car that the minute you take to Walmart, it's going to have a ding in it. It's none of that stuff. It's sometimes just being able to enjoy the life that you've been given and have the family that God's given you. To be able to instill this peaceful feeling into life. Again, when you walk with the Lord, you will have peace. No matter what's going on around you. Abram was up there essentially being surrounded by all these different nations that were always warring, and he was at peace. Just doing what he was called to do. Well, let me get back on track. A new character comes into our story, and he's the king of Elam, and he's named Chedorlaomer. Chedorlaomer. I wish I had the echo at this point. Chedorlaomer. He's big. He's strong. He's mean. He was the head of a coalition of Mesopotamian states. So he was the main king who ruled over other smaller kings. They just all gave him tribute. Now, at this point, the kings of Sodom, Gomorrah, and 3 other neighboring cities have been paying tribute to Chedorlaomer for a very long time, about 12 years. They're saying, we'll give you our best all the time. We'll give you our main tithe. We'll give you the best animals we have. Here's money as we get it in. And they at some point got tired of it, and they rebelled. Okay, so we've got all these places where Lot's living, rebelling against this one main king. Chedorlaomer stood up. He took him down pretty quick. It was put down pretty quickly. If you look at chapter 14, 11, and 12, the 4 kings took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their food and went on. They also took Abram's nephew Lot and his possessions, for he was living in Sodom, and they went on. That's the problem with this whole story. It was all good until they messed with Lot. Simple enough. Chedorlaomer could have had it all and walked off without any problem, but Lot was wealthy. He was wealthy because of Abram and all that Abram had done, because God had blessed Abram. Therefore, everyone around is being blessed, even Lot. It's the same kind of thing in your life this morning. If the Lord is walking in your life, people around you will be blessed. What a great thing. To have peace and to be able to bless other people around you simply because of your relationship with God. I mean, this story just tells it so easily. It's all good. Now, we know at this point a conquering king took anything he wanted. Usually he took all the possessions and he took all the workers as slaves. And so that's essentially what he's doing with Lot at this point. He's taking everything of all these cities that he just put down, Chedorlaomer is, and he's taking Lot and his family to be slaves in the new empire. Simple enough. It's typical. But what's neat about this, Abram wasn't a pushover. Someone in this battle made it out alive. And where did they run? They run to Abram because they knew Abram was strong and powerful in his own right. He was just keeping his own business, doing his own thing. Now, at this point, when you look at it, Abram had 2 options. When this young kid comes up and says, your nephew Lot's been taken, he could simply say, well, that's what he gets for taking the easy route. Which sounds like some of us, maybe me sometimes. Or he could say, you know what, that's family, we take care of family. I don't know. Where would you have been? We even had a little bit of a discussion like that in our classroom this morning about how we take care of each other and what should we do how far should we go? Well, in the end, we look at it, Abram takes care of Lot. And he marshals all of his forces, and he pursues the enemy, Chedorlaomer, as far as the city Dan, which is way on down the road. He divides them. Quickly he conquers them. This is Chedorlaomer, the king of the Mesopotamian states, who just took down all these little city-states. And Abram and his shepherds and farmers just took him down. Look at chapter 14, verse 16. He brought back all the goods. This is what Abram did. And also his relative Lot and his goods, as well as the women and all the other people. Everything that was taken by Chedorlaomer has been returned. Abram's coming back into town with everything in tow. Can you imagine how one guy, it really does make you think how strong Abram really was, how God had blessed him to do what he was able to do. One small family took down cities. Great kings of the area took him down without much effort. The Bible makes it clear it was a non-issue. He rallied his group, got everybody get a spear, get some arrows with you, get some rocks. Let's go take care of this thing. Simple enough. In spite of Lot's foolish choice and rebellious spirit, Abram was empowered by God to bring him back. And we're going to see God Most High come out in this whole concept here. It wasn't Abram that did it at all. It was God Most High. This is a long story, but I got to get you to the end. The wind didn't just release Lot, but liberated all the people at that point, all the possessions that Chedorlaomer had taken. Everything that Chedorlaomer had was now in Abram's possession. Let's see what kind of man he is. So we see that Abram rescues Lot. The second thing, Abram refuses the deal. We get into God here. Now we're going to understand Elyon. You have to get into chapter 14, verse 17. It says this: After Abram returned from defeating Chedorlaomer and the kings who were with him, the king of Sodom went out to meet him in the valley of Shavah. And that's the king's valley. Abram returns. He's met by two kings at this point. We're going to see the second one, and we're going to our second king first, and we'll end with the good one in just a minute. We're going to talk about the second king, the king of Sodom. The first one's going to be the king of Salem, which is Melchizedek, and he's a powerful figure. But we remember that the king of Sodom had been defeated. If you look at the story, he headed for the mountains the minute the war started. He didn't even sit and fight with his people. He headed out. He left the area. He fled to the hill country. Abram essentially owned him if he wanted to. Abram was in charge of all. He owned everything that the king of Sodom had at this point. If he wanted to keep it, it was his. And so we see this crazy thing going on. Shouldn't this king, the king of Sodom, bow down before Abram? Abram's in charge. He's the man at this point. There's nothing that the king of Sodom has to bargain with him. Yet he still represents everything that Sodom stood for. His disobedience, all the sin, worldly pleasure, and pride. Look at verse 21. The king of Sodom said to Abram, "Give me the people, but take the possessions for yourself." Now this guy has nothing to bargain with. Who does he think he is coming out to talk to Abram like this? Abram could quickly say, "Guys, take him. Put him with the rest of them." I mean, that's the kind of guy he is. He just took down the greatest king in the area. King of Sodom was weak. He ran off anyway. Again, it's just a sad thing, but he is something. He demands something that's not his anymore. Again, Abram won. He could keep everything. It was Abram's right. In fact, he could kill the king of Sodom right now if he chose to. Get rid of him. Let's make Sodom a good city at this point. The king had no chips on the table, yet he was trying to strike a bargain. It's amazing how you and I try to do that with the Lord. We have no chips anywhere yet. God, I did my best by you. I really did my best. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to try to live a good life. I really haven't got time to walk with you or listen to what you have to say, but I'm going to do my best to do the best kind of guy I've ever been. You know, I know this thing probably is not what I'm supposed to do, but man, it's going to sure be helpful for my family. It's going to help us in the long run. It's going to be a great thing in the end. How many times do we do that? I mean, you can make up whatever scenario you might be going through. Essentially, none of us are different than the king of Sodom. We're always bargaining with the great God who holds all the cards on the table. We have nothing to bargain with. Yeah, this is the life that we lead. We'll say, we aren't that bad. We've done good things. We tend to sound like the king of Sodom. But let's go on, 22 and 23. But Abraham said to the king of Sodom, "I have raised my hand in an oath to Yahweh, God Most High," Elyon. And again, you see this almost always attached to Elyon, creator of heaven and earth, that I will not take a thread or sandal strap or anything that belongs to you. So you can never say, "I made Abram rich." I mean, is that who you are? Do you walk like that with reference to the God? Say, God has promised this thing for me, and no one's going to take his thunder. No one's going to take away what the Lord is about to give me. Only He can do this, and He's the one who's going to get the glory for it. God said that He would make Abram rich, and Abram's not going to let anyone else take God's glory. The only thing that Abram actually took out of any of these cities was the food to feed his men to fight the war. Abram knew that God Most High, Elyon, owns everything. And again, you can't get away, Elyon, without seeing Creator of heaven and earth. We talked last week about Elohim being the great God, and He is the Creator God. The Creator God is also the God Most High. Now, this is the second time we see Elyon. Second time. Here it means Creator and God Most High. Abram is praising a great and mighty God in front of a king who has nothing to offer. Maybe this king can understand who God is and maybe get the point. I don't think he does. Now let's look at the first time. We've got to back up a few verses. So Abram rescues Lot. Abram refuses this deal. It's not going to happen. There's nothing you can give me. I already own everything. If I want to keep it, I will. But that's not who he is. Thirdly, Abram meets the priest king. This is neat. 18 to 20. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was a priest to God Most High. He blessed him and said, Abraham is blessed by God Most High, El Elyon. That's 2 times we've heard it. He's creator of heaven and earth. And I give praise to God Most High, El Elyon, who has handed over your enemies to you. He understands where the power came from. This is a crazy thing because Melchizedek had nothing to do with Abram. He had nothing to do with that promise that God made to Abraham to make him a great nation and all the peoples of the world will be blessed by him. He had nothing, yet he was a priest of God Most High. He's one of those enigmatic figures. When you look at the name Melchizedek, it means righteous one in Hebrew, righteous king. That's the kind of guy he was. So there have been lots of allusions, and if you read commentaries, people will say maybe this was Jesus coming down and discussing and talking and being in some kind of mysterious figure, because you don't know anything about Melchizedek other than this and 2 other places in the Bible. And this is really the least of the place we know about him. Hebrews 7 is where we're going to find out most about him. But he's a righteous king. He provided sustenance for Abram and he blessed him in the name of El Elyon, God Most High. Again, always be honest with you, El Elyon is not a new name for God. It's not. All the main people of the place would have called their God, God Most High. But there are a few nuances here you see totally different than anywhere else that Palestinian region would have called their God El Elyon. Again, El was a common name. Elyon just means Most High, the greatest of the gods. Nothing unique. Yet here he's identified as the possessor of heaven and earth. And he's further identified by Abraham as Yahweh. One God. The God that you and I serve. The God that gave His Son. That's the God we're talking about. That's El Elyon. El Elyon has delivered Abraham, and not through Abraham's military genius or his ability to have a lot of great warriors on his side. Only God, El Elyon, God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, gave him the ability to do that. Even the king of Salem, Melchizedek, acknowledges that. Now let's look at these events again real quickly as we kind of come to an end. The king of Sodom greets Abram. We see that. The king of Salem greets Abram with provisions and blessings. Now again, the king of Salem, again, part of this enigmatic concept. Salem in Hebrew means peace. And often it's attached to the concept of Jerusalem. So we have this righteous king, the king of peace, which is why many commentators will say this was Jesus. I'm not going there. I don't think there's anything there to say. I think we just had another great ruler of the area who loved Yahweh God. Why wouldn't we? But you can wrestle with that at lunch. We have him coming in blessing and giving provisions. The king of Salem recognizes the true source of Abraham's power. The king of Sodom offers Abram a deal. He has no idea who God is, and he doesn't care at this point. Abram tells the king of Sodom he's sworn to the God Most High he will take nothing, and he won't misplace God's power. Only God's going to bless me, and no one else will but God. Yet the king of Salem, at this point, Abram offers him a tenth a tithe of everything he's just taken. He doesn't give it back to Sodom. Sodom gets, everybody just pretty much goes back home. But a tenth of what has been taken in this war with Chedorlaomer goes to Melchizedek, this righteous king, this king of peace. 10%. You look at it, he didn't have to. Chapter 14, verse 20. And I give praise to God Most High, who has handed over your enemies to you. And Abram gave him a tenth of everything. Beautiful thing here. Again, I once in a while I'll bring up one of the students in my class, in a class here and there, and another one came up the other day. He just brought it up before class started. He said, "What do you think about tithing?" This is the student we've talked about. I said, "Well, tell me what you think. Let me find out where you are first before I figure out how to deal with this." And he believed that tithing was part of the Old Testament concept of works. We're not supposed to tithe in the New Testament. Well, I simply took him to the book of Acts. I said, would you rather give 10% or rather give everything to the Lord? Because everyone lived communally. In the book of Acts, everybody gave everything to God. I didn't think of this case here. This is an interesting case because Abram didn't know Melchizedek anything. Melchizedek just brought out some bread and wine, blessed him in the name of God, Elyon. But when you look at it, a tithe really is a spontaneous expression of gratitude. Something that we shouldn't consider law, something we shouldn't consider work. When I give gifts at Christmas, it's because I love people. If I give money or my resources or my time or my talents to the Lord, it's because I love the Lord, because He's been good. That's what we see here. And so I wish I would have remembered this. If He ever brings it up again, I'll remember Melchizedek. I kind of went to the far extreme, and he had no way to answer it. But this really is the beautiful illustration of what a tithe looks like. He loved Melchizedek. He wanted to bless Melchizedek because of what Melchizedek had done for him. Again, with Melchizedek, he's mysterious. If you want to read more about him, go to Psalm 100. Go to Hebrews 7. So what is all this crazy story? Let me finish this story. What does it mean about Elyon? Again, I had to go through 2 or 3 chapters to get you there. You can't preach 2 chapters. In seminary, if I preached more than 3 verses, they would have marked me down. And so sometimes I'll give you 5 in here just because we can get through maybe 5. But to preach, you really rip these things apart. I can't rip apart 3 chapters. So I've got to just tell you the story. But let me bring this thing together. To understand the name Elyon is to know this identification with Yahweh. This is not just any God Most High. This is the God Most High. Yahweh is God's name. It's the name of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yahweh is the Father of Jesus and the God sitting on the throne that you and I serve today. Yahweh is El Elyon. He is God Most High. Simple enough. There is no greater God than El Elyon, which is the God that you and I serve. Allah is not El Elyon. He is not. I wish they weren't deluded. This is a great God that we serve. El Elyon also shows us that God is the possessor of heaven and earth, because you don't see the one terminology of El Elyon without seeing that He's also creator of heaven and earth. The people just implicitly understood, we're talking about the greatest God here. The greatest God made everything. Therefore, He is the greatest. He is the highest. We always see the word creator attached. El Elyon is the God Most High, creator. We also see that because He is all these grand concepts, He can give Abram victory over his enemies because God is God alone. There is no greater God anywhere. That kind of brings us to us. If God can do these mighty things and be El Elyon for one guy, 5,000 years back, what can He do for us today? Can He still be El Elyon for you and me? I hope you believe that. It's easy to say yes in here and then walk out there wondering how we're going to pay our car payment. That's the life that you and I live day after day. We live in squalor when we could be kings like Abram. We don't have to live weak. We can be victorious and strong. Now, please understand, I'm going to be the first one to get in the doldrums when things go tough. I'm not just beating on you. I got to beat on me here too. We serve a great God, the God Most High, the possessor of all things, the creator of heaven and earth. Abram knew that, therefore his little ragtag family could take out all the great city-states of that time. Really, probably it was an afternoon. Just let's run up there, let's take care of them, and come back for lunch. That's the kind of God we serve. After spending all this time on a story that occurred 3,500 years ago, we can remember that God has not changed. Malachi 3, because I, Yahweh, have not changed. You, descendants of Jacob, have not been destroyed. God himself is being very clear through the prophet Malachi that I am the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And if God is that big with Abraham, why can't he be that big in your life? Why is it we live so small? You may not be rich. I could have a lot more money if I would have chosen that direction there. But would I have peace? Would I have happiness? Would I be able to spend time with my family here? No. I'd be sitting there wandering and chasing, trying to figure out why I'm not happy. I lucked out and I made the right choice that time. I'm going to say lucked out. God was there. But I happened to listen to him that day. And I made the right choice. What happens if we do that most of the time or all of the time? What kind of powerful life can we live? I love you people, and I don't want you living in squalor. And I'm being metaphorical here. I don't care how you live. I just want you to feel good about how you live. I want you to have joy in the way that you live. That's what Abram can show us today. That's what this crazy long 3-chapter story can tell us today. If God hasn't changed and can do those great things through Abram, why can't he do them through you? Why can't God make you prosperous? It may not be wealthy, but he can definitely take care of any bill you might have coming in. He can definitely take care of the IRS, whatever they may be wanting to do with you. He can work these problems out and bring smart people in your path to help you get to the end, to solve whatever issue may be coming. If God can do this with Abram, why can't he make you healthy and strong? We've had several miracles around here of God doing miraculous things with people's health. Why not? Why is this such a surprise? We serve a big God. God is big. God is great. He is Creator Most High. He is the highest of high gods. If God can do that with Abraham, why can't he restore your life back to joy? Why can't he give you peace in whatever situation you're in? Why can't he make you victorious over whatever enemy may be in your life at this point, or the enemy himself who's wreaking havoc in your life? Why can't he do that? If he can do all these things for him, he can do these things for us. Again, it's not really preaching today, it's just kind of telling you a story and wrapping it up. But I need you to stop trusting in your small abilities. Not that much. I can kind of see a little hole through my little fingers right here. That's much power you've got. When we serve the Creator Most High, the God Most High, the Creator of the heavens and the earth, who wants to make us victorious over our enemies. That's the God that you and I serve. Let me rephrase that. That's the God I serve. Who do you serve this morning?